Hi, my name's Rachel, and today we're talking about What Fury Brings by Tricia Levenseller. Now, if you've been here for a really long time, you know that The Shadows Between Us by Tricia Levenseller is one of my most hated books of all time. It's ridiculous. But I thought that that was like a one-off, and I thought surely all of Tricia Levenseller's books will not piss me off the way The Shadows Between Us did. Well, I was wrong, because it turns out that today she outdid herself. Listen, I don't know Tricia Levenseller from Adam or Eve, but I've had her pirate books on my TBR for a while. I might have one physically somewhere. Now I'm all done. This book really pissed me off. This book pissed me off for the same reason that Silkfire and A Gentle Tyranny pissed me off, and also its sequel, A Brutal Justice. Things get real weird when we try to make women into the bad guy the way that men are often the bad guy. When we try to do matriarchy the way that men have in real world done patriarchy. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying that I've never seen it done well. Even in the synopsis of this, it says, a sexy, empowering romantasy. Okay, so up front, the first thing that we're supposed to know about this book is that it's sexy. All right, got it. A sexy, empowering romantasy featuring a warrior general who must kidnap and train a husband in order to take her rightful place as queen. Wrong. She doesn't have to. She chooses to because she thinks that that's her best option. Were there other options? I don't know. Probably. We don't do a ton of world building or a ton of like explaining the politics here in a way that I feel is sufficient. So we're just like immediately in, I believe, chapter 2, she's like, I know, I'll kidnap a guy. We didn't explore any other options. It's not that she must, it's that she decided she would. There's a shortage of men in the kingdom of Amara because there was a failed rebellion against the matriarchy, and now most of the noblemen in the country are dead. And so now the women of Amara not only subjugate like the men in the kingdom of Amara, but they also sometimes kidnap men from other countries, including the country of Brutus, where our other main character, Thanos, is from. He is the heir to the kingdom of Brutus, and he gets kidnapped by Olara, our main character, the warrior princess general who is in line for the throne, but so is her cousin, who she's competing against. And so Olara decides to kidnap the second son of the kingdom of Brutus, the second in line for the throne, and instead accidentally kidnaps Thanos, the heir to the throne, who pretends to be his brother. He then gets carted off to the Amaran capital and is forced into a situation where he will be trained to be her husband. And again, I just want to point out to you that the point of this, it says it right there, first line of the synopsis, it's supposed to be sexy and empowering. And it took all of 30 seconds into this book for me to realize that that was nonsense. This is very specifically told to us to not be a feminist book, so I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to be empowered. It's supposed to be, the author's note says that it's about her fury towards men. Fair enough, I'm mad too. But it cannot be hot to subjugate men the way that I'm subjugated, which I'm told that it's supposed to be sexy, and it can't empower me to subjugate men the way that men have subjugated women. And yet that's what I'm told in the synopsis. You have changed the status quo and you've made it so that men are subjugated, and that can be an interesting idea, but if the point, if the reason you wrote it is to empower women, I'm gonna question how subjugating anybody is supposed to be empowering to me. And further, why am I supposed to be turned on by this? I'm cool with changing the status of systems and industries, but not like this. You know who changes the industry status is today's sponsor, which is Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile is challenging the industry status for wireless services. No monthly bills, no paying for what you don't need, no BS, just premium service starting at $15 a month. Mint makes it so easy to go on and purchase a new plan. You simply purchase the plan online that makes sense for you. No stores, no salespeople, nobody telling you that you should add on X, Y, and Z to your cell phone plan. It lets you choose the data that fits you the best, so you can select 5 gigs, 15, 20, or unlimited data every month. If you, like me, are trying to introduce your kid into the realm of having a phone and the responsibility of internet usage, a tailored plan like this can help make that leap so much easier. The plans come in 3, 6, and 12-month durations, so you can buy up front and save even more. You can sign up and activate the service in minutes from your own home and keep your own number. It's so simple that 96% of users rate themselves as highly satisfied with Mint Mobile's customer care. All plans include unlimited talk and text, plus free calling to Mexico, Canada, and the UK, and 10 gigabytes of hotspot on your unlimited plan. You can bring your own unlocked phone or shop the new latest models with Mint. You can sign up and activate the service in minutes with an eSIM right in the comfort of your own home. And all of their plans come with a 7-day unconditional money-back guarantee. Follow my link below and get premium wireless plans starting at only $15 a month, and enjoy the freedom that Mint Mobile offers. And thank you so much to Mint Mobile for sponsoring today's video. The dedication reads, "For Rosie, because you're the only one I know for certain won't be offended by this book, it's paying for your kibble." Which, you know what, never mind. I'm not even going to make a comment. We're just going to move on to the author's note. It says that if you're under 18 or if you are the author's father, that this book is not for you. Please come back later unless you're her father, in which case the book is still not for you. What Fury Brings contains scenes of graphic sexual content, graphic language, and graphic violence. If you're wondering what graphic violence means, let me share that there is a penis guillotine in the novel that is used on rapists. The society I've created is a reflection of our own, but reversed. No, it's not. Because patriarchy has been the norm across our world, and matriarchy is a deviation that does not happen this way. In order for it to be the reverse, it would need to be that matriarchy was always the norm in this world, and then a patriarchy split off from this and created its own society. So there is very few places in this world, in our world, that matriarchy is the norm, and it is not just the inverse of patriarchy. In this world, there are patriarchal societies. What this book is doing, and I can show you through a quote later in the book that's about 37% in. "I'm told that in Brutus, the man's country, you men force women into all kinds of unwanted marriage situations, often the moment they begin bleeding. Do you not barter and trade your women like cattle, regardless of their desires?" "How is that any different from what you're doing to men here?" the prince says. "The difference, prince, is that the women of Amara became this way to counter the way men were treating them. Your sex started this." It's not the inverse, because it's not matriarchy was happening and then patriarchy was happening as a result. And you can't talk about patriarchy without talking about the history of it as a whole. It can't be divorced from that. But this watered it down to, well, men were bad in this one country, and so women over here decided to do what the bad things were done to them to the men. That doesn't feel a little shallow and irresponsible? What this means is that all the atrocities committed against women over the course of history have actually been committed against men, except only in this one country. And if you're talking about over the course of history, then we have to take worldwide context, and then we just don't do that in this world. And I just don't really know why. I guess it's because then you'd have to sacrifice the sexiness in order to actually talk about the issue. Men cannot hold property. Any money they receive belongs to their wives. Men can be married off as soon as they're old enough to perform. Men are the weaker sex. So this is because a goddess empowers the women to be able to magically overpower men. Men should be seen and not heard. Men should smile and flex whenever a woman looks at them. Only men can be punished for infidelity. Please note that this is not what I think the world would look like if women were in charge. Far from it. Rather, this book is flipping the tables to show a new lens through which to view our own history. But it can't, because throughout our history, we have had patriarchy. In this world, it's not throughout history we've had matriarchy, and then we had a patriarchy. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if I'm really explaining, but this cannot be a one-to-one because we haven't done exactly the same thing. And I do think that that's important if you're going to have that conversation, but again, we're just trying to be sexy. This book is called What Fury Brings, and it is all about my fury. Okay, so author's thesis stated up front. Every time a man cut me off when I was speaking on a panel at a convention, every time I found out a male author with my same sales numbers was receiving higher advances than me, every time someone made me feel small for having a vagina instead of a penis, every time someone told me my only calling in life should be that of a wife and a mother, every time anything at all sexist or misogynistic happened in our world, I worked on this book. It is my fury mixed with my love of the romance genre. It is harsh and it is sexy and it has a happily ever after. If you, like me, are angry, I think you might like this book. So I'm gonna have to stop you there because the answer is no. I am angry. I am angry all the time at the setup that men have put us in, because I understand that being in a position where sexism happens in the workplace sucks, but women are dying in the United States because of the overlap of patriarchy, capitalism, racism. They all connect to create this very bad system that typically comes after women of color first, and they're dying. And like, white women are also dying. Domestic violence is a huge problem. The most common cause of death, I believe, for pregnant women, they're the second most common cause of death, is partner violence, is violence inflicted upon them by a man specifically. So I am angry. I'm angry all the time at this setup, but I don't really understand how we got from point A to point B here. I'm angry that I'm being told that I'm less than because I have a vagina instead of a penis. Therefore, I'm writing this book where I'm sexualizing the issue, because that's what it looks like to me. And that's what the synopsis says. It's sexy and empowering. I don't feel empowered having read this book, and I don't find it sexy because I think that I could make a case that some of this is sexual assault. And I don't think that it was written to be sexual assault romanticized on purpose. I think that's just sort of how we got here, by not responsibly looking at the issue of patriarchy, flipping it, and then writing about it. I think that we just sort of did a very shallow analysis of patriarchy and wrote angry and thought about it never. I don't think that this is a good idea. And I don't think that like saying up front, you, my dog, or whatever that is, Rosie is, are the only person who's not going to be mad about this is funny, because I think that that's sort of like an attempt to get ahead of anybody criticizing this. You can't do both things. You can't say, I'm angry and I'm sexualizing what happens to men if we treat them like women, and that's empowering. You can't say all those things at once. There's conflict there. If you're just here for the romance, I still think you'll like this book. So let's set aside all of the issues I have with the book. I don't agree because I don't like these people, and I don't think that they have any chemistry. I don't think they have great personalities on their own. The majority of Olara is just her trying to make her place as queen and inflicting these very shitty situations on this man, hoping that she can be queen, and dealing with the fact that she doesn't have that goddess-blessed strength and has to hide that. She really doesn't have much of a personality. Now, Thanos is the more interesting character, which, God, I hate that I'm having to defend the man here, but I think that might have been the point. I don't know. Thanos is the more interesting character, but I think that he deserves better than Olara. So I'm not rooting for them to be together whatsoever. And so no, even as a person who likes books just, because I like the romance in them, this is not one of those places where I feel that way. The author says, I'm incredibly proud of it. Now, listen, that's subjective. You're allowed to feel proud of it. And also, readers are allowed not to like it. And also, I don't think you needed to get ahead of that by saying, the only person who's not going to be offended by this is my dog. Okay, please be aware of the following trigger warnings. Mentions of sexual assault, but no scenes depicting it. I don't agree. I think that some of this is sexual assault. Physical and emotional abuse by a parent and a spouse. Dubious consent. I don't know that I would call it that. I'm not an expert. I would have to run this by somebody that I feel is better at kink than I am, but I don't feel like this was dubcon. I feel like there was a moment there where he was saying stop, and just because he had a boner, it was fine, which I've talked about in other books if we flip it around. Just because the woman is wet does not mean that it is fine. Kidnapping and bondage, sometimes sexual. The auctioning and selling of men, sex workers. Mentions of grooming and underage sexual partners. I think that we might have wanted to word that differently, just like this isn't, I'm not trying to be a dick here. I'm just saying that if you're writing content warnings for your book, you might not want to say underage sexual partners. You might want to just say CSA, because it's not like younger people, like teenagers, going at it themselves, which like also I don't really want to see. But if a older person is grooming and then does a sexual act upon a underage sexual partner, that is child sexual assault. So I think that probably should have been changed to reflect that in the trigger warnings. Animal death, including war horses, shown inexplicitly on page, and a dog that died in the past and is only referenced. War themes and military violence, the aforementioned penis guillotine. If you do choose to continue, then happy reading. It does have a glossary, like a terminology thing. So this world, despite being shitty to men, this country, I should say, despite being shitty to men, the men's country is homophobic. The women's country subjugates men but is not homophobic. And it's not like queerphobic in general. So we have people who are asexual, we have people who are trans and non-binary and gender fluid. And again, our women's country, Amara, is non-homophobic, but the men's country is homophobic. So in the beginning of this book, Olara, who is a princess and a general and one of our two main characters, is in battle with the king of Brutus. She throws something at his head, knocks him out. He is captured and taken prisoner. And she's talking to him as he's tied up, and she's like, should I keep you as a prisoner for ransom? Should I trade you for your son? Should I just kill you? In the end, she just sends him home. But then she kidnaps his son anyway. I don't know. I don't know why we did it that way. She mentions his son Thanos. She's like, oh, should I trade you for your son? What's his name? Each country, the two countries that we're talking about, Amara and Brutus, they both serve a god. The god that is over Brutus, which is like the men-run country, is a god who made these men like really big and beefy, and apparently they have big dicks. Meanwhile, the goddess that they serve in Amara, again, made the women magically able to overpower men. Now, I don't know how this works for trans women. I don't know if they can overpower men, and I'm not sure if that's ever explained. That would be a good way to like affirm that trans women are women. So we switch over to Thanos' POV, and his dad has been returned. The king has been returned home, tied to a wooden pole and butt-ass naked. So after this king gets washed and fed, him and his father talk, and the king says that the potential queen threw a rock at his head, which is talking about Olara, and Thanos says, oh, that's, really unsportlike to his father, but it's also like the only way to best his father in battle because he's so huge and nobody matches him with a sword, which is interesting because that's completely different than the POV of Olara, where in her POV, she was saying, oh, this guy has a huge sword and he's just overcompensating for something. Cleaving it through the air like an axe, she said. So then the king brings up how the Olara had mentioned she could steal Thanos and trade him for his father. And she also mentioned, hey, I know that your son is becoming more and more well-liked. And this is a point of contention between Thanos and his father that we learn immediately. So long term, he's worried about his son committing treason and taking over because he's better than his father, he's more good than his father. And so the king says, do I need to remind you what happens if I meet an early demise? There are assassins that will kill your mother and your sister. They have no value to me. I have 5 sons. If anything happens to me, they die. Now, I was a little confused about like this. So if you, have a heart attack and they can't prove that it was natural causes, so also that the wife and the sister die? And I guess maybe so, like maybe that's there to just confirm that, they can only live as long as he lives because women have no value. And Thanos thinks that his father is evil. So immediately it says that he thinks that his father is evil. So immediately off the bat, we have positioned ourselves as Thanos, good guy, Olara, pretty good woman. Together, they could change the thing. And his dad is it lays it on real thick right up front. His dad is so evil. One time when he was a child, his mother took him out and got him a puppy. And then his dad snapped its neck because his mother did not have permission to take him out by herself. So now people are close to him are killed. And in some cases, his dad makes Thanos kill people that Thanos has gotten close to. And so now Thanos is like, I'm really pissed that this general let it slip to my dad that I'm so well loved by the people, which is interesting to me. Like, I don't know why you would ever put yourself, if you know that this is a point of contention between you and your father, the best strategy would be to be like, all right, I'm going to be an asshole at least until my dad's dead. That way, nobody gets hurt, everybody thinks I'm a dick, but at least they'll stay alive. So what exactly is he doing that is making the people love him? I don't know, but I also don't really understand why he's the only brother getting this treatment. Like, in the case that his dad does decide to kill him because of treason, or in the case that his dad decides, he could just decide not to raise him up to be the one who takes over. Why isn't he raising all of his sons like this? Thanos' dad says this is something that he's going to thank him for one day, that his dad did this to him. And I'm like, sure, but then why not do it to all of your sons? I don't really know why it's just Thanos that gets this kind of treatment. The perceived threat that his father saw as an issue started over a puppy. His mom taking him out and getting him a puppy was, I don't know, it just felt like a first draft kind of idea, and then we didn't really go any deeper than that. And I'm so interested in masculinity and talking about masculinity and having a fantasy book where we sort of deconstruct that. And this just is so shallow in its approach at discussing that. And my question is aren't his other brothers, if they are loved by the people, are they not also a threat to his father, if that's the problem? Or is it just Thanos? Because any of them could choose to do a coup, take over, the people would support them if they're loved. I don't know. So he doesn't have relationships. He doesn't have sex with women that he has like feelings for. He doesn't take up any sort of relationship. He only sleeps with sex workers because he's afraid of his dad making him kill people. Immediately into this book, she decides, all right, I need to secure my place. Here's an idea. I'll go kidnap that husband, that son of that guy who I just kidnapped and then sent home. I'm gonna kidnap his second son, not his first son, who's like a little softer, will probably be easier to break in. She talks to her aunt who is in charge, and you know, she's trying to figure out like how to secure her place. And so ultimately she decides that kidnapping a husband, which is like an old tradition, she decides that she's going to do that to try to secure her place as queen eventually, because she's the potential queen and so is her cousin. Her cousin is a shitty person in comparison to Olara, which the bar is in hell. This is, if we're flipping this around, then what you've done is written Olara to be the nice guy. Well, yeah, sure, I live in a misogynist society, but like, at least I'm only a little bit mean to you. You suck, bro. And like, that's the main character. It's a woman instead of a guy. Will this remain unchecked by the text? We'll see. Stay tuned to find out. And so in talking with her evil cousin who has added a 13-year-old boy to her harem, the main character thinks to herself that she wants to free all the men, but then goes on to do shitty stuff to her kidnappee. And I just think it's like really heavy-handed to be setting up in chapter 4 that everybody else is evil, but our main character is the one good woman who wants to free all the men. It's just incredibly heavy-handed and lazy. By the way, sorry, the society says that you shouldn't sleep with the 13-year-old boy, but like some people are doing it, and she thinks her cousin will. So her cousin is still in the running for a possible position of power despite the pedophilia. Okay, that doesn't bode well for the society that we've created here. Anyway, so her cousin, again, is another potential queen, and she goes and talks to her, and she's like, hey, I'm gonna go steal myself a husband. So just FYI, I've already done like mitigating steps to try to sabotage your sabotage, because I know you're going to try to sabotage this. We then have this conversation with her aunt where this is where we learn that this is like a queer normative society. Her aunt's like, are you sure you're attracted to men? Are you sure you're not attracted to women? Are you sure you're not just like asexual? And she's like, no, I want to have sex with men. I've just never had the opportunity. They don't use the word asexual or like attracted to men or trans men, trans women. They have their own words for it. So Thanos goes to a brothel with his brother for a birthday celebration, and a specific sex worker requests his younger brother, the one that Olara is out to kidnap. And his younger brother is also better looking than him, but his brother is otherwise occupied. And he's like, I haven't had sex in so long, and my brother is not better than me. I'm the best prince, and just because he's better looking than me doesn't mean he's better than me. I'm paraphrasing, but it was that dumb. So he goes into the room where the sex worker is waiting for him, and of course it's Olara, but he doesn't know. So they start to make out, collide, and they're both really into it off the bat. Like, this was instant attraction, and that's the basis of the relationship that I'm supposed to be rooting for, which I don't fucking think so. She says to him, wow, you're bigger than I anticipated. And his response is, I'm the best prince, because he thinks that she's talking about his brother, but she doesn't know that he's Thanos, and he's like, I'm the best prince, and it was so cringe. But then she remembers, oh shit, I'm not supposed to actually be having sex, even though I'm really turned on right now and I'm really attracted to this guy. I do need to kidnap this guy because he's supposed to be my forced husband. So she pricks him with this barbed ring that she has. And when he wakes up, he's paralyzed. He's like tied down, spread eagle, and they are leaving. They're like leaving his country. And not only has this thing that she's poisoned him with make him paralyzed, it also makes him hard as a rock, like his eggplant. Tied up, spread eagle, hard as a rock, and paralyzed, but can still talk. And so she talks about how he was a great kisser, and talks about how he's also, she's like, I'm going to shave off your beard. You're going to come be my husband. And he's like, no, you won't take my beard. Like, is this the best that we can do to talk about like men and beards and masculinity? Is this it? Is this it? And she says to him, your seed will create queens and conquerors. And I'm like, girl, stop that. He initially believes for like a second that his dad might have cooked this up, which was a stupid idea to ever think that. But then he recalls that the nobility of Amara, the country that she's from, used to kidnap husbands for themselves. And he's like, all right, well, clearly that's happening to me. I can't let myself die because then my brother will have to live the way that I've been living under the rule of our father. So I need to play along, find an opportunity that presents itself in order to get away, and then I'll just pretend that my birthday celebration went really wild. Dad will never know. If somebody had done this to me, I'm bi, so, you know, either way, man, woman, if somebody had kidnapped me and said all those things to me, tied me down spread eagle, and I was like in a situation, I would not be able to be attracted to them. Immediately, if you treat me like dog shit, I'm not attracted to you anymore. It's gone, dried up, all done. Not him though. He observes her, and the way that he describes her is sort of like she's dressed sort of like Xena warrior princess, but she's also described as a bigger woman. At one point, it even says like her belly comes out as far as her boobs. And I'm like, oh, so she's built like an average woman. So like me, right? Which like, great, cool. Actually, like if this was actually Xena warrior princess fanfic, I would have preferred she ended up with a Gabrielle, but whatever. So he talks to her as he's, you know, spread eagle. She's been trying to talk to him about like history, and she's been treating him like really kind of abominably and thinking it's fine. He's like, you will return me at once. And she says, your voice is so deep. He tells her, your clothes are impractical. And she ignores this and says, is your jaw round or square? And I'm like, this is a weird conversation. Also, it's worth mentioning that he's significantly whiter than she is. This was pointed out by the text, and in fact it said that he might need like special oils for his skin in order to survive the climate of the country that she's from. And she like is seemingly like really attracted to his whiteness, which comes from his mother's side. Like he's like white hair, white skin, pale. Paleness gets brought up again and again. All of this is making me uncomfortable. He realizes that she is the same general who had just delivered his dad back home, naked and angry. Her and his dad have crossed paths a few times before, and every time that they do, the general takes it out on his kids. And this pisses off Thanos, but we don't really deal with this for the majority of the book. Like, he should hate this woman. He is, because of her, regularly abused. Meanwhile, she's talking to him so patronizingly. This is a mutually beneficial arrangement. I'm not going to treat you like shit. I'm not going to hurt you. I heard that you like poetry and reading, and you're going to be like well taken care of. He's like, oh, well, she's talking about my brother. She doesn't know that I'm not him. I like to fish and hunt. Oh, so he's a man's man. But he can't tell her any of this because, again, he's still pretending to be his brother. And this is going to go on for the majority of the book. She also, though, literally says things like men are meant to be seen and not heard, and that he will have to behave in front of the other courtiers. So I guess she still has things to learn about equality. And I'm sure we will definitely learn them on the way. This is definitely happening in this definitely good book. So he's like, all right, how are you going to break me? Which is what you have to do when you steal a husband. She's like, well, the most common practice is withholding of sexual favors. And he's like, well, who says that I want to have sex with you? You did want to have sex with her 2 nights ago. You don't anymore. And I think that that's worth talking about. He tries to run away. Obviously, she catches him. This won't be the last time. It's just the first. She's like, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Either way, you're coming home with me. And by the time I'm done with you, you won't want to leave. And I'm like, hey, listen, you are not that great. You kind of suck. I would want to run away too, and I'm gay. I'm into women. If I'm not rooting for you, a woman, something has gone terribly wrong. Her compatriot, who's named like Idra or something, is like, what are you going to do? Do you want him to like you? She's like, well, yeah, and it's not going well. And she's like, wow, could he really turn off his attraction to me so easily when he was into me 2 nights ago? And I'm like, first of all, why are you worried about this? Number one. Number two, of course he can turn off his attraction when he gets kidnapped. I feel like that's a reasonable thing for him to think. Now she's wondering, well, can I do anything to change it? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe offer him a deal? You're literally kidnapping him. Is he supposed to be attracted to you during? You absolutely could offer him a deal and he might take it and he might like work with you. I don't know why you thought that this was going to go a different way. You've literally been in battle with his father. You know what his people are like. So her friend offers the idea of humiliating him. Humiliate him when we get home so he can understand that he needs to behave in order to get things. Or don't do that at all and offer him a fucking deal. When he arrives there, he realizes that her country is actually really queer friendly. He sees gay people holding hands, which is illegal in his country. but there's also eunuchs. Don't worry though, they want the position. He tries to get away again, tries to fight his way out, and is publicly embarrassed. He's made to kneel before these women, and he's told that he won't get his dinner rations. So then Alara is like, all right, soon I'm gonna have you begging for me. You will worship my curves and you will love me. That's a direct quote. A direct quote. So he gets taken to the bottom of the palace to be properly bathed. And for some reason, the eunuchs have to bathe him. And they don't get to wear clothes while they do this, which feels like sexual assault for everybody involved, but this is how he finds out that the eunuchs have been mutilated. I guess he couldn't have found out a different way. He's forced to have his chest waxed, but very specifically nothing else gets waxed because everything else gets shaved. What the hell was wrong with these women that they wanted their men naked as wee babes, the book says, verbatim. Again, this is one of those times when I'm wondering why this would feel empowering to me. It's supposed to be sexy and empowering, and I'm feeling 100% neither. He then is tied spread eagle to a bed that is connected to her bedroom. She explains that it's illegal for men in her country to make women bleed, and this is where we learn that where he learns that she's a virgin. But no worries, because she has a bag of dildos, because women can purchase these dildo kits to stretch their openings so that a man won't get murdered for accidentally making them bleed during sex. She needs to see how large he is so that she can pick the right size of phallus to mimic his, so that when they eventually bone, he won't make her tear. I'm so serious. He's like, you said you wouldn't touch me. And she's like, who says I'm going to? So then she does a strip tease and she says, did you know my breasts are so large I can lick the nipples myself? He says, show me. She does, and then she arrives and then leaves him there with a rager. I don't know that this is dubcon. This feels like he didn't want to in the first place, and then midway he said, show me how you can do that, and I guess that was the dubious consent. I don't know. All of this sort of feels very iffy to me, and it kind of feels like sexual assault. Because at one point he also shut his eyes, like not wanting to see, because he didn't want to get an erection. And so that doesn't feel like consent to me. So if you think it's ending there, sorry to tell you that that's not true. She goes in her room and uses the phallus that is closest to his size. And we get this whole spiel about how the women in Brutus have it, where the men in his country don't wait to ease women in. They're just shoving members in there. Women's openings came in all different sizes, and it was foolish of men to think that just because something felt good to them, that it felt good to the woman. It reminded her that the brutes didn't deserve courtesy or kindness. It was unfair. Men didn't deal with this. I get that we're mad at men because even in sexual scenarios where like we are put in a position where like women don't feel like we can tell our partners when we're not feeling it. We don't feel like we have to feel like we fake orgasms. We have to pretend that it doesn't hurt. I get that that is a shitty situation, and I would like for that to change. This is not how I want that conversation represented in a fantasy book. She uses multiple of these phalluses. She's trying to like work herself up to it. And then she uses the chamber pot because she was taught to always relieve herself after having any sort of like member up in there to stave off unwanted infection. I get that we want a fantasy that reflects reality. It just feels so unnaturally done here in the narrative, where it feels like it's elbowing you. Like, look, see what I did? I talked about sex education and talking about centering the women's experiences. I know, I saw, that's great. In this country, husbands and harem members are given armbands, and this is a point of contention because he wants to be neither of those, neither a husband nor a harem member. But men are also adorned by the women with other jewelry, such as but not limited to nipple clamps. Oh, and also makeup, which the women want applied to the men. And she thinks that she'll have to like take baby steps to get him to wear makeup because he might smudge it on purpose in protest. And I'm like, hey, question, what have we done here? What are we doing? Because it feels really not okay, but it also feels like really like na boo boo. Now you know what it feels like. Taste of your own medicine. It's so bad and childish. Again, I'm mad at men too, but the answer is not writing a fantasy book where I'm like, and now I make you wear makeup, fucker. So it's not going well between them. Who's shocked? And she's like, listen, if I don't get like told that I'm the crown princess, if I'm not eventually going to be the queen, then you are useless. I need nobility's favor, and for that I need you. So I just need you to pretend that you're docile. And he's like, then what was last night about? We're to be married. We have to consummate it. And he says there will be nothing between us. Now, I don't know how they would confirm whether or not they're consummating it. And also, here's the thing about consummation. If you are a queer-friendly society, then you must agree that the end-all be-all of sex is not a penis going into a vagina, yeah? So could you consummate a different way? His member does not actually have to go into your taco. So maybe you could consummate a different way, have that conversation, but then we just don't have that conversation. I also like really appreciate books that are like empowering sexually, where we do have the conversation of some people don't like vaginal penetration at all, and that's just not part of their sexual relationship with their partner. So The Perfect Crimes of Marion Hayes by Kat Sebastian is one such book. Also, she pegs him. It's a delight. And I wish that I had seen the empowering like sex-related conversations that we had seen in Perfect Crimes of Marion Hayes, which isn't a fantasy, it's a fucking romantic comedy, in this book, and we don't. So once again, I do not feel empowered. I do not feel like this did anything of substance to have a conversation about sex. I actually feel kind of uncomfortable. But she's trying to convince him, hey, at least I'm better than my cousin, but you tied him to a bed and you told him that you have to consummate. He's telling you that he doesn't want to. You're not offering him any sort of deal. And also what she's not telling him is that she feels like she needs to do this, that then the goddess will bless her with the power to overpower men like everybody else has. So instead of, again, making him a deal, actually giving him like a semblance of equality, she says, in public, you need to use your manners, you need to return physical affection, you need to smile, you need to flex when women look at you. But he doesn't want to behave in public the way that she wants him to. So as punishment, she pinches his nipple, and the book says that it sends a shiver all down his body. So he's angry at it, but he's also turned on. And he tells her, don't fucking touch me. And again, that was sexual assault, and this feels really weird and uncomfortable. She's saying really like sort of inappropriate things publicly about breaking him, and he's like, oh, I guess, she means that. In her POV, she says she doesn't. But the problem is she pinched his nipple as punishment, which is sexual assault. And after him saying, don't touch me, there will be nothing between us, you are stepping all over his bodily autonomy again and again and again. And I'm just like getting more and more and more uncomfortable with this. I had to come back and finish filming. So he meets her evil cousin Glenerys, who is in line for the throne, and Glenerys is not kind to him, obviously. She's a piece of shit. It's like very heavy-handed. Randomly at the end though, it was like her main character's like, and I grieved for the lost relationship, the love that we used to have. And I was like, oh brother, we're just like shoving this in at the end to remind us, no, it actually had more layers than was depicted. So Glenerys says, what do they teach you over in Brutus? And Thanos says, oh, how to be warriors. So she proposes that he fight one of her warriors. And of course, it's a guy that used to be a warrior under our main character, Olara. He knew this wouldn't be the most elegant thing he'd ever done, battling a whore for sport. Then he reminded himself that this was what other people thought he was to Olara, that they thought she was bedding him and would continue to do so up until their wedding day, which he'd overheard would be some 3 months from now. That was how long he had until escape became vital. So like you could escape even after you're married, but okay. It's not like magically you're like locked in, but anyway. And of course it like repeatedly lets us know that Glenerys, the cousin, is really shitty towards the men that she keeps. Like one of them is giving her a back massage and she like pulls on his hair hard, and Thanos is like, I wonder what terrible things she does to them in the bedroom. Also, there's another guy who thought that he would be Olara's wife, our main character, and she's not interested in him. And somehow Thanos becomes jealous of this guy. And I'm like, sir, for why? He could solve your problems, actually. So before he goes and fights this other man, he's like talking to Olara, and Olara's like, I would hate to have to find a new husband. Afraid I'll mar my pretty face. be unsuitable for your bedroom activities? Our bedroom activities have yet to begin. Would you like to change that? Apparently, there's someone else who would like to participate in your bedroom activities. Are you jealous? Yeah, I'm not sure why he would be. This is bonkers. So like, again, this is supposed to be flipped. So if I put myself in the position of this man, I would look at that other woman that I'm supposed to be jealous of and be like, sister, you could, in fact, save me. But okay. Somehow this is supposed to be sexy and empowering. I'm missing it, I guess. She explains that the guy that he's jealous of is a political climber and that she doesn't want to be his ladder. You'd rather step on me instead. I will not step on you. I would have you rise with me until we are both gloriously untouchable, which is not true because you wouldn't be rising with her. She still subjugates you even up till the end of this book. She is still making decisions about his body for him at the end of this book. He has to battle this guy naked and oiled up. It should have been mortifying, but Thanos could manage the proper emotion with the way everyone was cheering for him, rooting for him. He was the obvious favorite of the crowd who hadn't applauded for Glenn's man. Pride tried to claim every corner of his brain, but he felt as though he ought to press harder for outrage. However, his sense of modesty was nowhere to be found. The whistles and screams felt good. They made him feel wanted, chosen. Again, if I flip this and put myself in his position, I don't feel empowered, and I'm struggling to understand the point of this. He couldn't accept the attention of women back home, lest his father hurt them, but here he could embrace it. He could embrace this woman without fear of harm to her. Yeah, but she kidnapped you. Like, she's using your body against your consent, like without your consent. And it's not like she's much different than your dad. She's just a woman doing it, and you think she's hot. Again, I'm really struggling to understand. He wins the fight. I'm just gonna breeze over that part. It's not really important. He and her have a conversation, though, that I thought was kind of interesting, where he talks about how he was stolen from that brothel. She, she still thinks that he's his brother Andrastus, but he was stolen from a brothel, and he says to her, you shouldn't have taken me from that brothel. The whores will likely be put to death for aiding you. She says, then I suppose it's a good thing that I paid them each a small fortune and moved the lot of them to Amara. You uprooted the best brothel in Brutus, just picked it up and moved here? I doubt Madame Blanchette still runs the brothel. The women now have other options, and the business wouldn't be nearly as lucrative here. Amaran brothels are mostly full of male prostitutes and the occasional other genders. They have different names for different genders, Medea and Dario, and I forget which is which. It's not really important to the plot of this book, so I'm not going over it, but the point is, I am confused as to why they don't just regularly try to go in and give the opportunity rather to women in Brutus to move to Amara. That would have been like a really interesting way to gain political power, is to just keep moving more and more women into Amara. And then they have a conversation about how the brothels in Brutus are worse. Imagine allowing others to touch you being the only way to scrape out a living. You men in Brutus are pigs, denying women their own land, their own money most of the time. Women have no men to look after them, so they must sell their bodies instead. Is that the way that you would have it? They like being whores, he protested. They're paid to act like they like it, she said. Would you have a fun time sticking your cock inside of them if they looked miserable the whole time? You act all high and mighty. When your men are forced into that life here, it is the same. And so she answers, perhaps it shouldn't be. We didn't choose this. Your sex did. My society is a result of the crimes of men. And I'm like, hold on. So it cannot be a flipped, like, it's not a direct one-to-one comparison then. It's not, it literally is just, we're getting revenge on men for doing patriarchy. So, like, I thought that I thought that what this book was telling me was that we had a society that built up a patriarchy in our world. And what we did was flip that in this book to make it so that historically it was a matriarchy, but it wasn't. It's just this one single solitary country decided, because they have this power from this goddess to overpower men, to do to men what was done to them. That's it. And that's not really commentary, that's just revenge. And which is, it's an option for a book. I just find it like, I wouldn't say that this is like, wow, the incredible social commentary. It's literally just, nana boo boo, I'm doing it to you now. And that's it. And I don't know why that would be empowering. I don't actually want it done to anybody. After he had won this fight against Glenerys' man, Glenerys ends up hurting the guy that she had had Thanos fight, and she makes fun of him for caring that another man is hurt. She like digs her nails into his skin, she grabs his testicles, and this is one of those moments that I wish was challenged more by the text coming up, because again, this used to be a man who worked for Olara, and now he works for Glenn. And Olara's response to seeing this man be physically harmed by Glenerys, and it's likely that he's like sexually assaulted by her later, there's nothing I can do for him, and I wouldn't even if I could. He betrayed me. He sided with her after everything I've done for him. Glenn got her claws into him in only 2 weeks, and now she knows that you hate it when she disciplines her men. She will do it around you whenever she can. So it's my fault that men are to be punished, he says. And this never gets talked about. Like, they never have a conversation about how it is wrong for her as a leader to know that a man is subjugated, a man is being assaulted, a man is being threatened and harmed, and to try to better his circumstances, he does what he must, and she still will not stick up for him. You cannot say that you are trying to create equality, elevate men, and then when you see a man doing what he must to survive, you chastise him for it and say, I wouldn't help him even if I could. I think you're kind of shit. And like, if I were Thanos in this position, I would be like, fuck you, man. I'll never have feelings for you. You're a shit person. Like, the more this goes on, the more I hate our main character. He's left unchained in his bedroom one night. And so he's like, all right, bet, I'm out. And so he starts walking through bedroom after bedroom after bedroom, which are all connected to each other because they're for her harem, but they're all empty because she doesn't have a harem. Thanos wasn't sure if he was horrified or pleased that she'd been telling the truth about him being the only man in her life. Why would you care, sir? I don't get it. Just because she's hot does not mean that you guys have feelings for each other. The most important thing was to get away from her with her ridiculous notions and her box of phalluses. And the way she gasped when he wanted none of it. He wants to go back to his family and get on with his life. And he thinks, oh no, without Blanchette's, which is the brothel, which is the only place that he can get like human contact without getting in trouble for it. He comes upon a guard and he knows that he can't hurt her and make her bleed, otherwise it's a death sentence. So he knocks her out. And then who shows up but Olara saying, I expected you an hour ago. What took you so long? Apparently this was all a test. You didn't think I would test you? Just what kind of wife do you think I am? We are not married. There was tension in the empty space between them. Is it sexual? Because if so, I'm confused. Like, tense as in, this is your kidnapper? Sure, but sexual? Between you two? I don't know why. Why do all the bedrooms connect to each other? It keeps men in line. When members of the harem watch me cross through their bedroom to reach another man's, it's an incentive to behave, to try harder for my affections. And again, she just does not challenge this whatsoever. She's like, do I need to summon the eunuchs to come deal with you, to, come put your chains back on? He says, don't summon the eunuchs, they make me uncomfortable. Because their manhood is gone? Because I don't like to be touched by other men. You only like to be touched by women? I only like to be touched when that touch is wanted. But that's not what you just said. You just said, because I don't like to be touched by other men. You could have just said that in the first place, but okay. She says that this is hypocritical because I'm told that in Brutus, you men force women into all kinds of unwanted marriage situations, often the moment they begin bleeding. Do you not barter and trade your women like cattle, regardless of their desires? She says that the women of Amara became the way that they are in order to counter what men did because of the way that men were treating them. Your sex started this. The current point, however, is that it's ridiculous for you to be offended by the way you're being treated when your own people practice it. It's just always been in your favor until now. Okay. I mean, sure, but that doesn't make it right. And let's not even say, let's pretend the point isn't to be right. The point is to be empowering. So my question now is, am I supposed to feel sexy or empowered, which are the two things that was promised by the premise? Am I supposed to feel empowered by this woman saying, yeah, I'm doing this to you, but you guys did it first? I don't actually feel empowered by that. I feel like that's ridiculous. This is an argument that I literally have to have with my kids all the time. Yeah, I hit him, but he hit me first. Both of you are pissing me off, and now you're both in timeout. That's my answer. When my kids do it, I'm supposed to feel empowered by it being in a book? Why? I'm not saying that this premise can't ever work. I'm just saying that this cannot be the only way that it will work. There has to be some way to do some sort of gender swap thing regarding oppression. But I mean, the thing that we're leaving out here is that it's not just about just sex. It's not just about gender. It's also about whiteness, and your proximity to whiteness affords you power. So like as a white woman, even though I am a woman, I am afforded power that is not afforded to people who are black, including black men. I am like there's really interesting, I forget who did a really interesting review of They Were Her Property and talked about this, but my whiteness affords me power over certain men, and that discussion about intersectionality is completely missing from this book. And in fact, the only time that like whiteness is brought up is to talk about how attractive she finds his whiteness. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that, but I can tell you that I am uncomfortable. In another situation where they're arguing with Glenerys, her cousin, he is trying to win an argument essentially and call Glenerys a bad person. So he says falsely that him and Olara have sex, saying, I was just thinking that when I'm underneath Olara, she ensures that the experience is pleasurable for both of us. I'm lucky to be have been chosen by her and not you. And so a few other people call Glenerys a bully, and Glenerys says, a bully? Aethon was a nobody before I graced him with my favor. Are you displeased with my attentions, Aethon? Aethon, the guy that she's treating like a slave, says, no, mistress. And Thanos says, a man who cannot answer truthfully without fear of reprisal is going to say what you wish to hear. You can beat him all day long without fear of consequences. If he makes you bleed, his life is forfeit. But that's not all that far away from what Olara is doing to Thanos. It's just a little bit worse. It's not better just because Olara does it less. Again, we're setting her up like she's the nice guy. Sure, I'm a little misogynistic, but look how awful these other dudes are. At least I'm not like them. Abuse is still abuse, even if you're less abusive than this other asshole. And it's not cute, and it's not sexy, and it's not empowering. Glenerys says, I heard in your country that women who are unfaithful to their husbands are executed. Even a rumor of infidelity will ruin their lives, but there is no such punishment for men who fuck women who aren't their wives. Is this true? It is. This is why I would never stoop so low as to wed a brute. Their habits are foul. Olara dishonors herself by bedding one. And when they leave this, Olara, by the way, has him covered in jewelry that he doesn't want to wear, including nipple clamps. And there's a chain that she leads him away by when he doesn't leave with her immediately upon being requested to. She hooked a finger in the chain connecting the nipple clamps and gently pulled. I'm a prince. I'm the crown prince of Brutus, and I'm wearing a goddamn nipple chain. It wasn't uncomfortable. His nipples weren't particularly sensitive. It was just humiliating to have so much jewelry hanging off of him. So again, this is something that she and him could have talked about. If she really wanted to empower him, she could have said, hey, here's how things are typically done. We could win and you would get this out of this arrangement. What do you want? What can you barter for? The way to give him agency and empower him would be to have him part of the bartering, like the conversation between them where they get things out of it. I mean, like all of this could have been done via a conversation. And every time that she does something to him, it's like, yeah, she did it to him even though he didn't want to, but he wasn't like wholly uninto it. I was uncomfortable and I didn't ask and I didn't consent, but like also it's kind of hot. That's not the same as giving him the agency to be able to participate in that. And like right after this, he says, keep your hands to yourself. Is that what you would prefer? Would you rather watch me while I touch myself again? No, he said, if a bit too loudly. Shame, it was better when you were watching me. I've never so quickly in my life. Must you continue to pretend you don't want me? I pretend nothing. I told you my desires from the start. I want out of these chains. I want to go home. And what is so great about home? What would you be doing if you were in Brutus? It's not that home is great. It's that he is a person and should be able to choose to go home. And you are not a good person for ensuring that he can't. Just because life sucks in Brutus doesn't mean he shouldn't have the choice to go there. Like when Rhysand does this, I call it paternalism, I call it gross, I call it unsexy. Am I supposed to say something different just because it's a woman doing it? I can't hold that double standard. Like, sure, do I text my friends sometimes and say, God, I fucking can't stand men? Sure, but I wouldn't like angry write a book about it where I'm like, yeah, but the men did it first. What the fuck? He says, I need to ask something of you, even though today is supposed to be disciplinary for him, like not listening. Trying to run away. I've come to realize that I will be in your country for some time, despite my best efforts. I know that you cannot tell my family where I am, but could you deliver a message to my mother telling her I am well? Why would she worry? Are you not prone to leaving the palace from time to time? Only on brief outings with my brother. She will think the worst has happened. This is not some ploy to get a message to her. Anyone can write it. I just want her to know that I'm alive and I'm all right. But wouldn't he be worried that she would say Andrastus is fine, and then that would cause some confusion because he's not Andrastus? We just don't mention anything about this. What will you give me if I do this in return, if I do this for you? He swallowed his pride, though it nearly killed him. I will behave, no more fighting you in public. So she agrees to send word to his mother. Then we go on this spiel about walking around Amara and him learning that it's actually a great country in some pieces. The common people of Amara seemed happy enough. Thanos didn't see any homeless or destitute among them. We have programs in place to care for the mentally ill and those who need help finding their way. Despite Glenerys' best efforts, she wants to cut off money for such programs. They're funded by the richest among us. She would give that money back to the nobles. That's why she's so popular among them. Then she takes him to a sex market. What you are witnessing right now is not how most in my country behave. It is a select few, the most extreme. Do you fear for these men in the sex market? Does it hurt you to see their pain? And one of them is attached to a device that keeps a man's member from hardening, is what the book says. This place was a nightmare, one he hadn't even known he should be afraid of. Everywhere, women shuffled men about, their superior strength allowing them to control the men. And so, seeing that he's upset about this, she says, once upon a time, there was a queen who wept. She had 4 daughters and no sons, and her husband beat her daily for it. One day he beat her until she blacked out, and then fucked her unconscious body. When she came to in her pain-filled delirium, she called out to her goddess. Please, she said, let me suffer no more. She wanted to die, for there was nothing she could do. She could not smuggle her daughters away from the castle. The law gave her husband full control. She was nothing without him. That was the way of the world. Men were leaders, women were followers. If they tried to be anything more, they were punished. For nothing brought out a man's anger quite so much as his authority being threatened. The goddess Amara heard the cries of her daughter, and she granted her a gift. The next time the king tried to beat her, the queen fended off his blows, and she struck back. He could no longer overpower her. She was now the superior in strength. All the women in Amara woke with new power. They broke free from the chains of men, and they rewrote the rules. They exerted power over their former oppressors. From now on, it would be a woman's job to rule. It was a man's job to endure. The queen looked upon her transformed kingdom with pleasure. See how they like it. Oh boy. That story, Olara said, happened 500 years ago, but we remember the women of my country were once treated the way women in your country are. Instead of making the world a better place, Sano says, your ancestor flipped it. Yes, for that is what fury brings. Wow, amazing. We brought the title into this is so I'm really trying. I really read this trying to find something sure, it was a little off-putting when you open a book and they're like, hey, by the way, penis guillotine. First and foremost, want you to know there's a penis guillotine. All right, that was a lot for page 1. We'll see what happens. Nothing good. I'm angry too. I am also angry at men. I don't feel empowered hearing, instead of making the world a better place, your ancestor flipped it. Yes, for that is what fury brings. If I just wanted to sit in my anger, maybe this would be a book for me. But I don't just want to sit in my anger. I want to do something with it. And I also want to recognize when I am ignoring when I do have power over people, even though I'm a woman. Okay, sure. What would you suddenly do if they had no power over you? She asks of him, what would you do in this position? I'd want revenge. So would I. What will you do, Thanos asks, if you are made queen? Will you keep things the way they are? How long must innocent men suffer for the sins of their fathers? And instead of answering this valid question, she says, well, what will you do when your brother becomes king? She thinks he's his brother. Will you bother asking him to change the laws that have always benefited your sex? Would you give a second thought to the way that women are treated if you hadn't been brought here? It never would have occurred to him to change the laws. He would have thought it enough that he could be good to them. But Olara's not doing any different. That's the same. It's basically the same. Once his father was gone, he would protect them. But what about other women? Women who didn't have kind men to look out for them. Was it really right to trust their well-being to imperfect men? Will you change things? The first thing I will do is to dismantle the evil in this market and free the men in Glenn's harem. Okay, that's bare minimum, babe. It's not even bare minimum. And then they watch a child get his penis cut off in a penis guillotine. She makes him watch this. The point was to show you the ugliest side of your gender and mine, to punish you by making you watch, yes, but you would never be sentenced to such a thing unless you first committed the crime. Let me remind you that you lost your breakfast when you learned of the man's crimes, not when you saw what happened to him. Did you think the punishment unfitting? That man is permanently scarred. And you think the children he hurt aren't? Oh, okay. Perfect. Thank you. I feel so much better now about watching a dick get cut off because he raped children. I don't believe in mutilating bodies as punishment. I worry, like, when I think about, like, if this is saying, like, yeah, we should be cutting off dicks for, you know, for people that do this, even as a person who was a victim of child sexual assault, I wouldn't want that. And like, if you do, then fine. It's just that I'm a little uncomfortable at the idea that this is being passed off as like, yeah, but he hurt children. All right, as one of those, I'm not comfortable being used as like the way that we like manufacture consent. I do believe in consequences. I'm just not sure that you're gonna make me convinced that that's the right consequence for that. I'm just uncomfortable with this. Like, I'm really like the spectacle of this, like the yeah, you should agree with this terrible thing that we're doing because look what they did. It's like, whoa, let's slow. This is like super shallow and I just need you to slow down. And like the rate at which we're trying to get the reader to agree with these like choices that we're making against men is really back to back, and I'm just really uncomfortable. One thing I wish I could make men understand is empathy. God, this feels so hypocritical. Most men will never understand the horrors of rape. It happens, but not nearly so often to them. I mean, in your country, though, it rarely happens to women, right? So I think at this point, if again, it's hard to look at this in like a flipped, because I don't live in a world like this. I live in my world. But if I were to flip it, then wouldn't the empathy be for the statistical likelihood, which is in your country, it's men? And so he brings up this, that, you know, she says this is a place where all women should feel safe and cared for, not just them, but all the minorities, even, you know, ones who are not as revered as they are in our country. And he says, except men with a preference for women. Like him. I'm to be hated and treated like trash because of my preference for women. And her response is, if you let me, Andrastus, I would be so good to you. I only want to help you understand. To punish you, yes, but more importantly, to help you compare your country to mine and see the world through our eyes. I'm not saying it's right, just that there's a reason for it. I'm so exceedingly uncomfortable. Most in my country believe that if we don't dominate men, they will go right back to oppressing us. We must behave this way in order to protect ourselves. This is giving me the like physical ick. I don't know. I've heard this before in Fundyland, and I know that wasn't on purpose, but I can't help but like bring up that I've heard this before in evangelical circles where Christians when we do Christian persecution complex, when we engage in that, we're like, well, Christians have been oppressed before and we'll be oppressed again, so we need to take over. It's like, whoa, how did we get here? And again, she puts it back on his country. What reason is there for the way that men treat women in your country? And it's like, sure, cool, but there is no reason for you to do it right back to them. Actually, maybe egalitarianism is the right choice here. Maybe both of you are wrong. Maybe find a new option. And I'm not really sure why the book isn't doing that. Again, if it's supposed to be empowering, I thought that that's what we would do. Is it maybe not supposed to be empowering then? Am I just supposed to be mad and going, haha, now you get it? Because if so, I feel like you probably should have put that in the synopsis instead of saying it was sexy and empowering. Speaking of lack of empowerment, she forces him to get his ear pierced. When the piercer asks him, are you ready? He tells the piercer to fuck off, which doesn't sound like consent to me. She's really happy about his pierced ear though, Alara is. Oh, it's beautiful. Beautiful. That was not one a word should use to describe a man. Certainly not the crown prince of Brutus. Again, we really did have an opportunity here to talk about toxic masculinity and like the demonization of anything deemed feminine, and we just didn't do that. And we certainly didn't like flip it and like have like I don't know if that's what we were supposed to do, like flip everything and see, you know, what it would look like if women did the stuff that men do systemically. We did neither of those things. It didn't hurt at all anymore. Not even when he tilted his head to lay his ear on the pillow. His earring heals up so quickly. Yay! If the story Alara shared with him was true, then the women of Amara had made themselves cruel and heartless to retaliate against the abuses of men. Sounded like an excuse to be cruel and heartless, to justify doing bad things. But how could he blame the Amarans for what they'd done to protect themselves? What he'd seen today was no worse than what he'd witnessed in his own country. The only difference was that the victims were men. It hit harder because it was his own sex being hurt. Alara was forcing him to question so much. Gods, he needed to get out of this place. Oh boy, this is Really something. Him and Glenerys' man Aethon, who have gotten, who have had that fight before, they get into a physical fight that Glenerys initiates, but like not into an official one. And Glenerys steps in during and gets hurt by Thanos, and he makes her bleed accidentally, which means that he is going to be sentenced to death. But because he belongs to Alara, she says that she demands substitution. And so Alara's like, all right, well, I'll take his punishment for him. Like Jesus. Aww. And Alara is given the choice, well, since you're nobility, you can either live out your life in exile or you can take a beating. And so Alara agrees to take a beating, and she gets her ass kicked by Glenerys. And she's thinking she can't explain why she feels an attachment to this man, but if he'd broken the laws in some way, then she hadn't done a good job training him. He's thinking, surely the effort of taking herself a new husband was more appealing than this. So then why? Why subject herself to such pain and humiliation in front of a room of people who decided whether she would be the next ruler of her country? All for him. Why had she done it? In his country, if a man saved another's life, he was owed a life debt. Thanos felt honor bound to this woman. He growled aloud. She'd taken his life away first. She'd stolen him, and now she'd saved him. If anything, they were even, except that he was still trapped and forced to do her bidding. Oh, he's conflicted. Yeah, that feels layered and not shallow at all. Sure. She has like 4 broken ribs. She got her ass absolutely kicked. And she has to lay in bed for a while. He goes and talks to, he's hanging out at the home of Idra, which is like her friend slash, second in command, fellow soldier type thing. Walking around Idra's house, and he comes across a room full of boys who are talking animatedly over some kind of game board. They said, "You're Alara's. We love Alara. She plays games with us." Wow, she's nice to children, even boys. That's amazing. And they said, "Oh, we're part of Idra's harem." But not like that. She took us off the streets. She takes care of us so no one takes advantage of us. Hold on. What do you mean she took you off the streets? We just had a whole spiel a couple chapters ago where we were told that there's no homelessness problem because the nobles are paying money so that the programs that Glenerys wants to get rid of ensure that everybody is not on the streets. There were no homeless. So what do you mean she took us off the streets? I thought that there were systems in place using tax money. I guess we just forgot about that to make an opportunity to make Idra and Alara seem like good guys further. She has tutors for us so we can join the workforce when we're ready. I would have thought, again, that would have been a system in place paid for by tax money, just like the homelessness issue. We're not supposed to tell anyone that we're not really part of Idra's harem. Again, then what was all the talk about the systems and the tax money from the nobles? Okay, Idra was helping them. She didn't bed them, she kept them safe, just as Alara had done with him. No, she pierced your body, made you wear nipple clamps, made you fight another guy, took you from your home, nicked you with some sort of poison that made you have to lay completely still with a rager. He goes and talks to Alara, and he's like, why didn't you just let me die? Taking on a new husband would have been easier. It would have been much easier, but nobody takes what's mine, and my cousin tried to take what's mine. And he's like, oh, so it just comes down to her hatred of Glenerys. Got it. She gets better. After this, they go, I don't know, around the countryside or whatever the fuck, and she is attacked by a bunch of women who we later find out work for Glenerys. He has to use his nipple chain to kill one of them to save her. Which he's still wearing because he doesn't get to choose what he wears. Because, he's so taken care of. And after this, she's like, you saved me, so I want to please you. I want to do something for you. And he thinks that she's going to give him a rhymes with snow job. I don't want a transaction. I don't want you to pleasure me because you think I've earned it. I want you to do it because you want it. She's been hitting on you this whole time, so no problem, bud. Why can't it be both? I've already told you I'm not a dog you give treats to. I don't know how many times I need to say this, but I find you extremely attractive. The more I learn about you, the more that attraction grows. You've learned nothing about him. What are you talking about? You don't even know his name. You know nothing about his family. All you know is you were like, I guess, kind of a little bit nicer to him than you're nice to the rest of the men in this country. And then he strangled somebody with his nipple chain for you. What? We're to be bedded? What? close. We're to be wedded, and I'm eager to bed you. If anything, I'm the one trying to trick you into a sexual encounter by disguising it as a reward. Don't like that. So she has him chained up again. Cool. Why am I chained to the ceiling? I think the bed would be much more comfortable for a aforementioned rhymes with snow job. She said, who said anything about that in particular? He's like, of the two of us, I'm experienced, so I would think that you have questions for me. I would wager that I know how your body works far better than you do, she says to him. We teach our people anatomy and physiology from the time they are children. My understanding is that all sexual experiences in your kingdom are only experienced firsthand, which I imagine leads to many disappointing encounters. So this society is nice to queer people, but not nice to straight men. And they keep homeless people off the streets until they don't or something. And also they teach sex ed. Wow, I feel so empowered, I guess. I don't know what we're doing. During the teen years, we teach with books, fiction and nonfiction, with diagrams and detailed descriptions in the classroom, and women are allowed to observe at the brothels should they choose. She does ask for his consent before she does stuff. However, she doesn't tell him what she's going to do beforehand. So I would have liked a moment here where it said, do I have consent to do anything to you? She makes him verbally say out loud whether or not he consents. And then she does say, if you want me to stop, you simply say the word stop and I'll stop. Good. So she brings out some oil. She goes in the back door with her hands. What sorcery was she performing back there? Was it magic oil? And then I got the ick because it said all these beautiful muscles and pearly white skin. And I was like, why do we keep bringing up his white skin like this so often? I'm getting real icked out. It was her name he cried when he came, spilling his seed on the floor in front of him. So prostate stuff. Good for him. Afterwards, she says, does the Prince of Brutus like to be in the by a woman? He didn't know what she saw in his eyes. Was it hatred? Was it pleasure? The two were so tied together he didn't know anymore. I want to hear you say it. So you can say I told you so? No, Prince. It will only make me burn harder for you. Sorry. As soon as I leave you, I will take my satisfaction in my own room. He asked her what was in that oil, and she's like, oh, that wasn't the oil. That was just us. It was just regular old oil. If you make me proud, I'll do it again for you. He shouldn't want that. He should want to kill her. True, she is your kidnapper. And like, if this were me, I would still want to kill the guy, personally. Or the woman. Anybody who kidnaps me, I want you dead. He remembered the feel of her inside of him. He knew he couldn't let that happen again. He needed to get out before she could ensorcel him again. Oh, by the way, he had asked her, don't call me by my name, call me Prince. And he specifically says, like, when we're doing this kind of activity, you need to call me Prince. While we do this, call me Prince rather than my name. She just completely forgets about it later. He talks to another man who is the wife of a noblewoman, and this man is literally here for one scene just to convince him that he's in a good spot in life. I was the second-born son of a nobleman in Defankar. I had no purpose, no trade, no land or money to inherit. When Inadra took me, she kidnapped him. I was furious. It took years before I realized that I went from having nothing to everything. This feels like paternalistic bullshit, except it's women doing it. Help me. She gave me a purpose. I wasn't just a second-born son with nothing to do. I became a husband, a father, a friend to many here in the gymnasium. More important, though, she gave me love. Alara's cousin Glenerys sneaks up on him one day and is like, listen, you're smart to be wary of me, but I have a proposition for you. I will give you a knife. You kill her. And he's like, well, how am I supposed to kill her? And she's like, well, you share, I mean, she's like, you're in chambers together. He's like, yeah, but I'm chained up. And he doesn't realize that he's let this slip and it's a red flag. And later this is going to be a problem. He takes the knife and he doesn't like technically agree to this, but he finds out that the eunuchs that technically work for Alara actually work for her cousin. And so he just like tucks this information away until later. Him and Alara aren't fooling around any further, but one day he hears her flicking the bean. When she finishes in the other room, she says his name, except it's not his name, it's his brother's name. And so immediately he's like, meow. She's amazed that Alara is friends with her soldiers because he's not allowed to have any friends because his dad doesn't let him. So then she lets him train with the other soldiers, and he like has a lot of joy from this. And this is supposed to be bonding, but again, like every single thing that's given to this man is at Alera's discretion, and that's not hot to me. That's control, and I'm not empowered by other people being controlled. She wanted to instigate more intimacy between them, but knew ultimately that it needed to be his choice by his request. Literally nothing else is by his request. She loved seeing him out of the chains and with a weapon in hand. Her troops didn't speak to him, but they accepted him because he was hers. Wow, how empowering. There was nothing to do but give it time for the intimacy between them. In the meantime, she continued to stretch herself with the next biggest phallus in the kit. Okay. Andrastus was well behaved at breakfast each day, but the damage had been done because he's like not good enough and he doesn't behave enough, yada yada. Her aunt, who is the queen, tells her that only a quarter of the nobility are in her corner for Olera to inherit the queendom. And her aunt's like, I'm on your side. I would like to support you, but it's not solely my decision. So you and your man really need to steal the spotlight. And she's like, hey, will you like recite some poetry at this event? Like, I'm hoping to like win over the people. And I think that, you know, if you show your softer side, that they'll like really be into you. And then maybe that will help my bid for the throne. He wished he could ask Andrastus, his brother, for help. He missed his brothers something fierce, even Canis. Were they all getting on without him? Was his father terrorizing Andrastus? Were his brothers blamed for his disappearance? We're at 66%, and this is the first time this man is thinking about this. He has barely thought about his family. He's mostly thought, I shouldn't want her, but I do want her, but I don't want her, but also this is humiliating. You know what this is reminding me of? It's reminding me of the same issue I had with Silver Elite. The same issue. I shouldn't want this man. He's bad. He's a fascist. He would kill me if he knew what I was, but I still really want him, and we're having this conversation over and over instead of world building and thinking about all the people that she cares about who she knew before she knew this hot guy. And that's what we're doing here, except it's like worse because he's a kidnap victim. And it even says in the text, it was the first time he thought about bringing his family here rather than going home. I can't imagine why you wouldn't think about asking her, hey, I'll make a deal with you. I will barter with you right now. Please bring my sister and my mother over here. You kidnapped me. You could kidnap them too. Bring them over here and I will do whatever you ask. Because his whole life is just trying to prevent them from getting hurt. He might as well just make that deal. He talks to Olera about his brothers, but one of the brothers that he's referencing is himself. Oh no, he's talking to Idra about this, and Olera, and he explains like, well, my dad beats me. Oh my gosh, that reminds me of this video that we used to watch when I was in high school.
Cool, all right. Cool, all right. Get out, down, kick it. If I mess up, my dad's gonna beat me.
And Olera's like, I would never let your father lay a hand on you again. I swear it on my mother's ashes. You lead him around by nipple clamps without his consent. This apparently is enough for them to bond. And he's like, listen, I gotta tell you, the eunuchs are on your cousin's side and she gave me a knife and tried to convince me to kill you. I'm not going to. She goes off, deals with the eunuchs, revokes their access to her room and locks them up in the dungeon. She says, how long ago did Glenn give you this knife? And he says, a week ago. And it was at this point I'm wondering, how long have we been here? Because wouldn't his dad be looking for him? Wouldn't word have reached Amara that one of the sons was missing and that it was not in fact Andrastus? It was the crown prince who was set to inherit the kingdom? Somehow not. This is the first time you've allowed us to be alone together in your rooms unchanged, and I want you to know that you can trust me, that I trust you. I don't need this. I'm going to stay and I'm going to help you win your throne. God, he had so much to figure out. His men fought the Effenins, it's a different country, without him, and his family was without his protection. He needed time to come up with solutions, but he meant the words he said to her. Why the change? Your forwardness and kindness, your fierceness and loyalty, your plans for the future of Amara. You're unlike anyone I've ever met, and I would see you be the next queen. I'm in. And I'm like, what? Dude, no, run. Again, if this were a woman, I'd be like, ma'am, hello? Let me help. Let me help. Listen, it seems like you need another woman to talk to you. But in this case, it's a guy. I don't even know how to get through to him. And now they're making out. He claimed her mouth with a savagery that might be suitable more to a thief than a prince. His lips were firm and they were demanding and they loved it and she loved it. She was expected to be in control so much of all the time and she loved that he was just, and yeah, he's just taking control. And then there was his bare chest. She loved touching it. The smooth white skin. Why are we always bringing up that his skin is so white? The ridges of his muscle, the slight peak of a hardened nipple. So they are starting to take off clothes. He apparently has never registered the fact that a clitoris exists before until this moment. He makes her arrive, and then after he pokes it and is like, what is this? And she says, don't touch it. It's too sensitive now. It's the part of the woman responsible for bringing pleasure. And he says, I thought inside. Like, that's all it says is 3 words. He's like that meme of that lady trying to do math, or just me trying to do math. Alara was breathing deeply, her eyes somewhat unfocused as she struggled to have the conversation. No, most women cannot come only from a man having been inside of them. Most need this spot touched to orgasm. His eyes widened. How can I make sure? There are so many ways, she says, we get to discover what works best for us. So they're about to, which I just want to point out to you that I'm not really understanding why they need to consummate this relationship and why consummate can only mean, because this is a women-run society, and we just had the conversation about how a woman does not typically, like statistically, people who have like vaginas and a clitoris do not arrive just from penetration. It's normally, the external bits. So I'm just wondering why her society, her women-run society, is set up in a way that that's still a thing. Well, we need to consummate the relationship. Well, what constitutes consummating? Because what you guys are like a more open society, like a less rigid society. Like, wouldn't this be consummation? Like, you had your fingers up inside him. Like, I think you're good. I think that you have laid claim and that your particular society would be like, oh yeah, you guys consummated the shit out of that. Anyways, so he's about to, right? And then she says his name, except it's not his name. It's his brother's name, Andrastus. And he's like, oh no, she said my brother's name and I'm hung up. Like, I always feel like I live in my sister's shadow. So if somebody said my sister's name during, I'd be like, oh, yeah. That does make me feel less than, because I'm the less good sister. It would remind me of that, if I was like pretending to be my sister. I get it. I do. I still think it's kind of stupid. Understood. But also, this is really shallow. Thanos felt like an idiot. No, scratch that. He was an idiot. Keeping his identity hidden had been crucial to his survival, but he didn't have an excuse now. He should tell her. Thanos, he would say, my name is Thanos. She's like, listen, there's no bad blood between us. I just want to know what happened so that we can like try to figure out what works between the two of us. She asks him, would it help if I promised not to initiate intimacy without asking? And so they start to initiate again, and she says his name again. That's twice now that he's backed off as soon as you say his name. And you know that previously when he did let you put fingers up in there, he wanted you to call him Prince, and this would have been like a good opportunity for you to put some pieces together as a smart general, badass warrior woman, and instead you just didn't. There's a lot of vultures circling outside my house and I'm a little scared. What is happening? That's like 40 of them. She's not understanding. She's like, he had no problem becoming aroused. Oh, maybe he was abused, and that must be it. I'll kill anybody who abused him. So what ends up happening is that Glenerys confronts Alara and says, you're chaining up your husband to be at night, and I think it's because you don't have any power. You don't have the power that the rest of us women in this country have. Something is wrong with you, and therefore I should be queen and not you. She proves this by telling Alara, just push this guy. Just push him. If you're strong, you could push him, no problem. And Alara can't do it, proving that she, in fact, does not have the power. So now everybody's wondering if she's legitimate. Also, Andrastus is forced to come clean that he's not Andrastus, he's Thanos. So now they're scrambling because suddenly now it's like the king of Brutus, Atelius, his dad, it's only a matter of time before Atelius learns where Thanos is and he'll come for him. And I'm like, it took this long? I just can't believe y'all didn't know sooner. Alara's aunt, the queen, confirms that she doesn't care that Alara is not strong. It was, she's always been a good general regardless. And she's like, listen, what we need to do is prove that what we think is happening, that Glenerys and Atelius, the king of Brutus, are working together. We just need to prove that. What we could do is send word to Atelius, make it sound intentional that you've had fun with Thanos, the heir, all this time, ransom him for Andrastus, the second son, get the real Andrastus, make him yours. We could tell the court that you took the heir on purpose to teach Atelius a lesson. You lied about his identity for his own protection. It was all part of the plan. Just pass it off as all part of the plan, which is genuinely, that's a good plan. Glenerys told Atelius that his son was in Amara. I don't know how he didn't figure it out sooner. Again, he had just been kidnapped by them himself, but whatever. Alara talks to the soldiers that she's in charge of, and she's like, listen, here's what you need to know. I'm your general. No, I don't have power, but I've always led you well, so you're gonna listen to me. That's that. So she's like, all right, Thanos, you're going to come with me. You're gonna get dressed up, and we're going to piss off your dad, and we're going to force him into confessing that he was working with my cousin. And instead of allowing him to take part in this conversation, allowing him to say, hey, that's my dad, I know what will piss him off the most, she's just like, come over here. We're gonna paint you. We're going to put you in clothing that your dad will hate. They'd painted silver. He caught his reflection in a nearby mirror. They'd painted silver swirls on his shoulders. His cheeks were dusted with silver sparkles. They'd outlined his eyes in some sort of thin black paint. He looked like an Amaran husband through and through. I have a plan, but it requires you to wear this and play along. If you do this, you will get what you've wanted. Andrastus will come here. You'll go home and return to your life in Brutus, but this is the only way I have a chance of winning my throne. And he's like, get my mother and sister out. And he could have bargained for this. Like, he could have had agency by at least being allowed to like barter, like to trade, to make a plan with her and say like, here's what I'm willing to do and here's what I need in exchange. And instead it's just like, his body is just there for her to use and abuse at her leisure. You are dressed this way because I need to use you to make your father angry. I will say things and do things that will be unpleasant for you. You must bear it unchained. You must stand there and take it. He could have been a part of this conversation instead of being told what to do. The embarrassment would push his father to do terrible things. Thanos' very life might be in danger. He's like, but if it means my sister and my mom are going to be okay, then it's fine. And I'm like, again, you could have talked about this. So his dad comes and physically fights, specifically one-on-one with Olara, and obviously she doesn't have the power of the goddess. Now everybody knows, so she's going up against him. He says that she fights like a girl. I already won. I took your heir, and I've made him a Marin. Did you know he likes being my whore better than your son? Why did it take you 2 months to figure out where your heir had gone? I told you exactly what I wanted, a son for your life, yet you still didn't suspect me. Why? I'm like, yeah, why? That is weird. You know your sons hate you. Thanos running away seemed far more likely, didn't it? That's why you had to wait until my cousin approached with the truth. What I couldn't figure out was what she was doing in your country in the first place. It was her idea to form an alliance, yes? You're too proud and stupid to come up with something like that on your own. What did she promise you? My life, if you helped her take the throne? Did she say she would let your soldiers within the gates to fight against the women under my command? Is that why part of your forces are on the other side of the city? She promised there would be someone to let them in? She did try. My troops are just better. I got the truth of it, admitted Atelius. You can't do anything without a strong woman guiding you. I came up with the idea, he said. All right, that's all well and good. It's just that I'm wondering at this point why she didn't think, hey, in all the weeks or months or however the fuck long Thanos has been in her care, why, like before she knew why wasn't she questioning why she wasn't hearing anything about Atelius wondering where his fucking son went? It was radio silence and that wasn't a red flag? Come on. I came up with the idea, Atelius said. She wanted an alliance, but I set forth the terms. Clearly you Amarans are all the same and capable of doing the simplest of tasks, but I don't need your cousin or you to take this stupid country out from under you, and I don't need any help to kill you. So then, because he just let it slip that him and Glenerys are conspiring, Glenerys gets arrested, and so does her mother, who I kept forgetting was even a part of this book, but was part of this conspiracy. And then Olara brings out her weapon, which is like this knife on the end of a chain, and she kills Atelius with that. And you get this like long speech from her friend Idra about how Olara is the best at that because she had the foremost expert train her on it while she kills this guy. It's stupid. So his dad is dead. He's now the king of Brutus. His mother and sister are somehow fine, even though we were told that they would be killed if he met his death, the king specifically. Now there's talk of combining Brutus and Amara into one country. Olara, you single-handedly gave us Brutus, and it couldn't have worked out better if we'd planned it in advance. Before anything goes further, before they actually get married and decide they want to be together, her cousin is charged, with crimes. And it turns out that her cousin's mom actually set it up so that Alara's dad supposedly attacked Alara's mom and killed her. But in fact, Alara's dad didn't do anything wrong, and Olara has lived under the shadow of this, even though it was actually her cousin's mom who set up her dad to take the fall. She took out her mom so that her mom couldn't be queen, her dad wasn't in the picture anymore, and she only left Olara alive because her and Glenn loved each other. They execute Glenerys' mother. Her and Thanos get married in the end, and it says, we will be equals. We will find a way, even if we have to work at it every day. And I'm like, How? You literally don't view him as the same, like as your equal. How? How will we get there? You spent this whole book telling me, yeah, we did this to you because your kind deserves it and you do worse to women in your country. How will you be equals? I'm dying to know. Even at his wedding, he still has to like make sure that his bicep is always bare, his left bicep, so that he can wear what she wants him to wear. Like this is not egalitarianism. She knew the brutes didn't show affection in public typically, but Thanos was more than happy to participate in the last rite of the Amaran wedding, which is a kiss. Also, in her dreams that night after she marries him and they bone, she has a dream that the goddess who bestowed all of the power onto the women in her country comes to her and says, "You're going to be the queen that my people need. I love all my children, including the men, including the commoners." And I think that this is a series, though I assume that Alara is not the main character in the next one. So I don't know, maybe we're going to do more about the goddess and stuff. Who knows? It ends saying, Alara was thrilled to have her equal at her side, now bound to her forever. The end. So I just don't really understand. I don't feel empowered and I did not find that sexy. So what was the point? And did I just miss it? So again, I think that this is an intriguing premise. I'm not saying that a gender swapped, a matriarchy rather than a patriarchy can never work. I just have never seen it done in a way that I felt was a good book, and this is just another example. They often fall very short in meaningful critique and just come off as like, oh, well, I did it to you now. See how it feels? And this is the biggest example I've ever seen of that. I will say that at least this wasn't as sickening to read as A Gentle Tyranny and A Brutal Justice, but that's because these were written by a fundamentalist Christian who was shitting on queer people, women, science, but it was very shallow, and so is What Fury Brings. Just replicating patriarchal logic instead of deconstructing it and challenging it is not the book that I feel is actually empowering. And again, this is another example of how intersectional identities were not taken into account whatsoever. We had like a sort of hand-wavy moment about class. We're like, look, we're queer friendly, but there was no like talk about, like, you can't have that conversation about patriarchy without talking about white supremacy and colonialism and race and class and those overlappings. And even though this was queer friendly, it still did not do anything more than treat like gendered power as a binary. It almost felt like it misunderstood, similar to how a Gentle Tyranny like talked about how women were oppressed by a patriarchy. It did not understand how patriarchy actually works, and I don't think What Fury Brings did either, for very different reasons. But I think that these both misunderstand how patriarchy works, because it's not a bunch of men who are in power doing individual like dominance over women. It's a very complex and historically embedded set of systems that all work together like gears in a machine. So merely like swapping who holds the power in this like binary system where we're just like, and Uno reverse. It doesn't work. It doesn't make for a compelling story where we're talking about like, I get it, women are oppressed and technically in a hypothetical we could do it to men. And what else is there? I also don't really understand who does the raising of the children in this. In Silkfire, which is another like gender swapped matriarchy thing, we had the men doing that, and that also was not I don't even think I finished Silkfire. My friend Lou has a good video on it. But again, I really wanted to see like the stereotypes talked about and discussed. So like I thought that we were going to really like lean into talking about toxic masculinity in this, and it just sort of got like vaguely mentioned and then brushed away. I also thought that we were going to do a thing where, because Amara does not have that inherent strength from the goddess, that we were going to again like swap it and have her experience what, you know, men are deemed like, if I'm not strong, then am I a man, right? I thought that Amara was going to have that conversation at some point, and if we did, it was so undercooked and shallow, I don't really know that it was even worth mentioning. This really is just a fantasy where men get a taste of their own medicine, and that's not what I want. I don't want men to get a taste of their own medicine. And it also feels like kind of selfish for me to think like, as a white woman, that I would want a story like that, because again, it just completely erases when you zoom out and you look at this from an intersectional standpoint, it ignores that, and it like flattens like the range of experiences that exist under, it's not just patriarchy, it's also colonialism and white supremacy. These are all pillars that are upholding these systems. And some of these I benefit from. I as a white person would benefit from white supremacy, can benefit from white supremacy. And therefore I do have to zoom out and not just say, well, patriarchy is the problem. It's all of them. And the ones that I benefit from need just as much scrutiny as the ones that I don't. So a world that simply flips like men and women power without considering race or colonialism will like inherently center a white middle and upper class as the centered subject. Gender domination is inextricably linked to imperialism, capitalism, hierarchies based on race. And so to just zoom in on this one piece, especially when you have a book that this man is constantly being like lusted after for his white skin, I don't know, man, I just was like super uncomfortable. I don't think that any of this was done on purpose. I just think that it was kind of done a little thoughtlessly and irresponsibly. And I'm not saying that you can't write books like this. I'm just saying that inherently, like, that's going to come with critique if you do it and it is so shallow like this. Also, the lack of like imagining of structures here was honestly kind of surprising. We could have been like really speculative in what it looks like when women take over, like what forms of like social relations do we have. Like even if you look at it, it sort of contradicts itself with the whole, there are no people living on the street, and yet Idra also had to take boys off the street. What would exist for the common people as far as like governance is a really interesting idea to look at if you're, so like look at all the pieces of this rather than just switching up who's on top. An intersectional like way to tell a story would explore further than that. Like I don't know, it's just really disappointing how shallow this is. There's a really good book called Unkindness of Ghosts by Rivers Solomon, where it's the antebellum South but on a spaceship. So if you wanted to do something new, to see here's what these structures would look like but on a spaceship. So it's not that you can't take an existing problem and put it somewhere else or flip something. It's just that you have to do it a little bit responsibly. And Unkindness of Ghosts is intersectional. It's talking about race and disability and gendered identities and class and how those things overlap. And it is angry, but it's also doing something with that anger. It's really saying something with that anger. And that's what I wish would have been done with this. I don't really feel like we like inverted patriarchy here in a way that like mattered or had a conversation. It certainly didn't interrogate its foundations. We just like flattened a very complex system into this one problem. Men bad. Like, yeah, sometimes men really suck and create these systems, but those systems are not just about being a man. It's also about being a upper class man, a white man, an able-bodied man. Like all of these things are very necessary to this conversation. And just to boil it down to just men versus women and leave out the rest, why? Especially when ultimately your like thesis seems to be, I was really furious. Okay, what would you like me to do with that? I'm happy that you sat down and had the ability to write down furiously, but the problem is that what I was told was that in your fury, you wrote something that would, to the reader, be sexy and empowering, and I have found neither. So that's it. That's what I have to say about what fury brings. 1 star. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe someday I'll find a, gender swap book that does the stuff that I really want it to do. That day was not today. Again, 3rd time was not the charm. All right. Thanks so much for watching. Leave your comments and questions down below. I need to go eat a snack. This made me starving for a better book and for like actual literal food. All right. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it this far, you can leave you can leave a peach emoji down below because that man got his peach juiced. Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said juiced. I shouldn't have said that. But I did. So we're going to leave a peach emoji down below if you made it this far. Thanks so much for watching. Sorry to have horrified you with that. See you next time. Bye. And before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons. I will say that these no longer show up on Patreon in alphabetical order, so sorry about that. And those thank yous go to Lex, SJ, Eric, Peggy Lou, Quinn, Rain, Scarlett, John E, Alexander, Samar, Ashley H, DJ Rocktopus, Kaleno K, Emerald Dodge, Ellie, Minby, Steph B, Lemon Jelly, Mixer Boneless, Lily, 3 Raccoons in a Trench Coat, Lady Chips Loves Pride, Call Me Kodiak, Ree Mirage, Katya, Melissa, Kai Brecker has not read Six of Crows, Lex, Megwin, Maddie Miss, Not So Secretly a Skeleton, Jory, Piloting SRN, Bex, Fox Waifu, Charlie Bear, Ricky Strong. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. And a quick thank you to my Potato Starch Marxists, Evie, Carlin, Paige P, Sean, Sarah the Bear, Jill, Talia, Corwin, Andy Mations, Darren, Tito Phoenix, Might Be a Magpie, Martin, Artie the Ninth, Hannah C, Shamed, Ava, Malara, Rachel B, Rebecca, Baywing, Amanda, Lustful Octopus, Lady Kittybug, Angelica, Jenny G, JM Tennant, Jay is on Olympus, Laughing Cat Dog, Dorothea Supports Public Education, Nicole G, Colleen, Sarah H, Sheen Onion, Fox Club, Danielle M, Kendra, Sakoria, Kayala, Sadie Selby, Bookish Rabbit, Caitlin M, Rosie Thorns, Penny Chilling, Katie L, Lou Siri, Aaron with 2 E's, Jen Michelle, LP, Jojo Bookish, Jessa Sue, Lazarus Ray, Casper, Genderqueer, Jelly V, Lauren G, Man-Eating Plant, Kate W, Saki Alume, Lindsay M, Gadarn, Dilf Enthusiast, KMTV, Kaylee Carpenter, Alejandra, Desiree Michelle, Darius, Triple M, Saintbringer, Bookish B, Bookish by Jenna, Althea, Megan, Francis, Kate B, Plague Carrier, Jackalope Max, Queen Cereal, Pondemonium, Mata Raptor, Rosemary K, Drive By Thinker, Juicy Wizard, Sophie L, Barry B, I Like My Women Like I Like My Books Thick, Mima Who, Katrina, Unicorn Jenny, That One Cute Chick, Harising, Myth Lesbian, This Is Not a Trap, Laura is Angry, Rhea Slagle, Morgan, Celeste, Macy Jane, Aaron S, Danita M, Cosmic Frog, Jesse, Rach, Kayla Alexander Kenny, Ren, Natural Blues, NM Rap, Che, Jing, Catuary, Taz, Miss Fox and Arda, Mac, Junie for Now, Gabby Z, T Foxbones, Pi, Adian, Mia, Fishy Fish, Chloe M, Luke has sleep token brain rot, hell yeah. Kath, Kellen R, Blubbles the Fish, Cass Plays, Jesse M. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend.